It's another Thunder Thursday on News OK. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, here with our Thunder coverage team from the Panic Room just across the hall from me here at 9000 North Broadway. Thunder beat writer Anthony Slater. From his home in Norman, columnist Barry Trammell. And from her home in Oklahoma City, columnist Jenny Carlson. Thunder Thursdays are brought to you by our good friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Take that drive down I-40. Save yourself some time and money. Guys, I got some questions here for you. And let's start here. Jenny, what's the best starting lineup for the Thunder in time without Durant? Who should they be starting on the court when they open next Wednesday at Portland?
Well, Barry and I talked a little bit about this on our Press Row video series, which should be posted on News OK now. But, you know, it sounds like it's going to be Anthony Morrow in Durant's spot, which, frankly, I mean, as much as I like Anthony Morrow and what he brings to the team, I'm not sure this is the right move for the Thunder. It looks like to me that the starting lineup on opening night is going to be Russell Westbrook, Andre Roberson, Anthony Morrow, Serge Ibaka, and my belief is it's going to be Steven Adams. Now, maybe something's happened today to make us believe it's going to be Kendrick Perkins that I don't know about.
Perk did practice today. I'm not saying he's going to be a starting lineup, but just breaking news, he practiced today. So he will be there available in the open.
Right. Okay, so, I mean, maybe Perk is the guy. I don't know. But in my mind, if you're bringing Anthony Morrow into the starting lineup in place of Kevin Durant, you're screwing with not only the starting lineup, which you got to do anyway because Durant's out, but you're screwing with that second unit as well, because we know that when Durant comes back, Morrow goes to that second unit, and now you're asking them to adjust as well with his return. I think in place of Kevin Durant that they should be looking at starting Perry Jones. I think it would cause less upheaval when he returns with the second unit. So, I mean, and I don't think Perry Jones has played horribly, maybe not super spectacular, but it hasn't exactly, made you think he's totally incapable of being in that starting lineup. And I just think it would allow Anthony Morrow to be in that second unit, to really provide a spark off the bench, which, you know, he's going to do once Durant's back. That's my opinion of what the starting lineup should be. It might mean that starting lineup, if you go that way, is not as offensive-minded as some people might want. But I think long-term, that's the way that you don't introduce as much chaos when Durant comes back.
That Perry Jones move also, Anthony, seems to be in keeping with the way the Thunder's proceeded in the past. Remember last year, Roberson moved into the starting lineup when Cephalosha got injured, not Lamb, not Reggie Jackson. So that's the way the Thunder's done it in the past. Why wouldn't they do it like that now?
Well, I think you can look at it a different way this time. Anthony Morrow's never been with the Thunder second unit, so you can put him as a starter. He's been a starter in this league. He knows how to do both. He knows how to do both within a season. Whereas maybe your young guys, Perry Jones and Jeremy Lamb, who you know when you have your full roster will be on the bench, you want them to get confident and comfortable in their roles on the bench. Whereas Morrow, he knows how to start. He knows how to come off the bench. He's versatile doing both. And then you're not taking him out of a second unit because the second unit has never technically had Anthony Morrow in it. Eventually he will go back to it. And maybe, if all things were ideal, you'd want Durant back and him already getting that time with the second unit. But I think what we're talking about is why they actually have Morrow.
Instant offense, replacing the leading scorer in the NBA, at least gives the first unit a chance to be more productive there, Barry. But it is not in keeping with the Thunder way of doing this, is the fact that you're in total recovery mode once you lose Durant. Is that why they just don't follow the old way?
Yeah, I mean, I think Perry Jones is the way I would go for the reasons Jackie O mentioned. But when you lose a Durant, the truth of the matter is everything's off. Nothing's really the same. So if they think they got to do whatever they can to supplement the offense, starting Morrow, I respect that decision. I think they're not wrong-headed for that. It's just going to be so stark playing without Durant. I'd forgotten. I think AC had a note earlier in the week or last week sometime. I'd forgotten that 7 games. I think it was 7 games they played without him. in the maiden season in Oklahoma City. He had that sprained ankle and missed 2 weeks or something. And even then, when they weren't any good, they missed. You saw how much they missed Kevin Durant. So it's going to be a wild time playing without him. They're not going to know what they're going to get from night to night. The one thing about Durant and Westbrook is you always, the production's going to be there from those two. And now that's been cut in half. So it's going to be wild times, I think, these first 6 weeks.
And this may be a question to Anthony since he's around the team every day, but I kind of wonder if starting Morrow instead of Perry Jones in that spot, is this maybe sort of a let's see how things go between he and Roberson, and if they don't like what they're getting out of Roberson, maybe do they continue to start Morrow? Is there a chance that, maybe he becomes the starting two, slides over into that position and becomes, it's a more offensive-minded starting lineup than they've had in the past? I don't know. Is there any chance that this could be a tryout to see who they like better in the starting lineup, Morrow or Roberson?
No, because they're making it clear, and they don't even have to make it clear. But I think they're doing it on purpose, saying, well, Andre's the 2 and Anthony Morrow's the 3. When really right now they are interchangeable. I think their thing is they know that Roberson's going to be the starting 2 guard, moving forward. And they know because he's the starting 2 guard, they want more offense at that 3, and they were obviously assuming they were going to have the best offensive player in the world. But now I think that may be part of why they have Morrow, because he's the best offensive option to throw besides Roberson, because Roberson's kind of minus offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think of it this way too: the premier factor in all this has got to be how this impacts your best player. And now your best player on the court is clearly Russell Westbrook. Having Anthony Morrow standing out there at the three-point line doesn't get you to Kevin Durant, but it sort of approximates that and stretches the court in a way that maybe still keeps the lanes open for Russell Westbrook to beat his guy and get deep. If you've got Perry Jones out there, Jenny, maybe you're not spreading the court. Maybe you're impacting how Westbrook plays and how successful he can be. And it's not been all that smooth without Durant in the preseason.
No doubt about it, and I think that, it was interesting to see these couple games without Durant and see how Westbrook performed. It sort of made me think back about Chris Paul and his final days in New Orleans. He was obviously a superstar point guard, a great player, but without that, that network of guys around him, it became really frustrating for him. And I think we may be seeing a little bit of that even in these preseason games. Out of Russell Westbrook, it's a different thing. Even though he's supremely talented, the position and the demands that are on him and what they want out of him, not only to create his own offense but to create other offense, it's tough when you don't have the the bullets in the gun. Now, granted, we're talking about again a lineup that continues to be decimated by other injuries that, frankly, I'm not sure are going to be as long lasting as Kevin Durant, but still. You got to wonder, if the need to have sort of a calming influence in there for Russell Westbrook isn't a little bit of the reason that Anthony Morrow is going to get the nod there too.
We're going to bring Darnell Mayberry into the discussion in just a second, but first move on to this next question. Barry Trammell, we'll start with you on this one. Is Kevin Durant's foot injury, the elephant in the room, of course, is it something the Thunder's going to have to worry about long term?
Well, I think it's something they are going to worry about long term. I don't know if they have to, but we've seen a long history of people, arms heal, knees can be operated on, but when your feet are in trouble, you got trouble. Going back to Bill Walton and probably somebody before him, the NBA's got a long list of people who have foot problems that really hurt a career. So it's something I think they're going to have to monitor and worry about and keep an eye on for forever how long that he's a member of the squad.
Hey, Darnell, where are you?
McDonald's, unfortunately.
Well, I'm glad you're there. Can you just mute before we bring you in each time? If you can mute your microphone as we're bringing you into the conversation. We'll bring you in just a second. Anthony, is this a long-term concern for the Thunder? Is this something they're going to have to be thinking about all year long?
Well, like Barry mentioned, Sam Presti and that organization worry about absolutely anything. So a franchise player having an injury on a part of the body that can sometimes become chronic, they are going to worry a ton about that, just like they're probably still worried about Russell Westbrook's knee, which has kind of become less of a topic now because everyone's concerned about Durant. Will they have to? I mean, I don't think that's anything any of us can answer. People have had this injury in the past and never had it again, or it's, they've re-injured it. They've had different injuries, the Yao Ming situation. There's no way we can know if they have to worry about it, but like Barry mentioned, they will worry about it.
Great point, Anthony, on Yao Ming. It was a really good package you did for the main event right after the injury. Darnell, you've written about this. You guys have looked over this list of people who have suffered this injury in the past. As you look at the names on that, does it make you think more likely this would be a long-term concern or less likely?
Yeah, I try not to think about it in terms of other players. I think it's just each player is different. Each player's body is different. I think Kevin's injury is probably going to heal and be something that he can overcome sooner rather than later. I don't envision it being something that he's going to have to worry about throughout his career or even over the next few months. I think that the Thunder's always been sort of more conservative when it comes to injuries and protective of players. So I think they're going to make sure that he takes as much time as he needs. He won't rush back. So I think they're going to make sure that it's well taken care of and fully recovered before he returns to the floor.
Jenny, of course, the Westbrook injury was the obsession of the last 2 years, and then along comes fate to say, well, here's something to really worry about. As you look at this Durant injury, listen to what Kevin said. What do you think the likelihood that we'll still be talking about this come playoff time?
Well, I mean, I think it probably is something that will be in the back of our heads throughout the year because it's, as Kevin talked the other day, there wasn't any sort of buildup. It wasn't like his foot, at least the way, from what I heard, the way he indicated it to the media was that it wasn't like those preseason games he played in. He felt something, and then finally that Saturday practice he said, I better get this checked out. It was more, he was fine, and then suddenly he thought, something's wrong with my foot. I better get this checked out. And, he even said he felt like when he got it checked out that the trainers were just going to say, it's just one of those, things. It's a little sore. Get some ice, get some extra treatment. You'll be fine. He definitely was not expecting them to say that he had that Jones fracture in his foot. So that's got to be a little scary too, that, you could essentially have him playing at the highest of levels and then one day he feels something that doesn't feel right and he's got another one. It's a little bit like Russell Westbrook last year with the knee. He plays Christmas Day. They kick the Knicks up there in New York, and then the next day we find out he's got to have more surgery, and he was as good that day as we'd seen him all year. So, to me, that's where you just never know. I mean, he may go the rest of the year, he may go the rest of his career, not have any problems, but he won't know until he feels it, and it sounds like it's an instantaneous thing. And so we're all just kind of left to wonder if he's going to have any more of those moments when he goes, man, my foot doesn't feel right.
Last question on the Durant injury specifically, Barry. Since Durant's injury, we've heard players floating proposals for shorter seasons. We've heard players speak out against shortening the preseason or getting rid of the preseason. We've heard the call for more coaches to be like Greg Popovich. Do you think Kevin Durant's injury is going to change the NBA?
No. The NBA might change, but I don't think it's because of Kevin Durant. I mean, we've seen some really good players go out before Durant, and I mean, he's as great as any, but I'm saying this has been an ongoing issue. I do think it'll be very difficult to shorten the season by games because of the finances involved. That's why I think they floated out the minutes, try to cut 4 minutes off a game. I think what we're more likely to see is a shortening of the preseason rather than the regular season. It's a concern, but at some point you've passed the barrier and are beholden to the money so much that it's hard to go back.
Darnell, short of predicting when Kevin Durant's going to come back, the next compelling question on the list for Thunder fans is, what's this team going to do without him? So the question for you is the Thunder will have a blank record while Kevin Durant's out. How do you complete that sentence?
Well, I think he's going to miss between 20 and 25 games. Let's just go on the light side of that. I'll say 20. I'd like to say 14-6 in those 20 games. If you look at the schedule after these first 5 games, the next 5 are going to be relatively easy. It's a bunch of bad teams on the schedule that I think they can take advantage of. So I don't think they're going to struggle as much as people think that they will. 14-6 might be a little high. It might be closer to 13-7 or even 12-8. But I think they'll be definitely above 500. I think somewhere around 12, 13, 14 wins. Or if Durant is only out, I think that'll be probably what they'll get around.
Darnell started off at 14 wins. Jenny, in that sort of range. Is he being too optimistic here?
Yes.
Darnell being optimistic? I never thought we'd see the day. I mean, come on. If we're going on the 20-game measure, which I think is probably somewhere in the ballpark, I'll say that they'll win. I'll go 13. I'll go a little less optimistic, but I'm with Darnell. And frankly, I got to admit, I haven't looked much beyond the first 20 games. So beyond that, my opinion would be a little bit uneducated, so I'm not even going to go beyond the 20. But looking at the 20, especially that second 10, it's not that tough of a schedule. You've got some tough teams in there, as you always will, but not a killer stretch in there. So you would think by then the guys that are in that starting lineup will have figured some things out. We'll be starting to gel. The second unit the same way. And hopefully some of these guys that maybe have had some injuries will really start to get their legs under them. So that second 10, I think they could really make some headway there. It's going to be tough to start. It would have been tough with Kevin Durant because they've got some really tough teams to open the schedule, to open the year. But I'll say they win 13 of 20.
Guys, Anthony, you sound significantly more pessimistic than Darnell does. I'll read you this question from Austin. Might lead into your answer. Do you think there's a realistic chance OKC could start out 0-5? Portland and the Clippers, 2 tough road games. He says Denver's a sleeper team, and Toronto and Brooklyn made the playoffs. How do you think you complete the sentence?
No. We actually talked about this on the podcast today, which is coming out later today. I think they're going 0-2, and then I think they're going to be behind that home crowd, home opener against Denver. I think they'll probably beat Denver, so I think they'll be 1-2. I think they can beat Brooklyn. Brooklyn was a playoff team, but they're going to be down this year. I think they're going to be 2-3, and then I think they play Memphis after that. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 2-4 coming out of the first 6, but 12 of their first 21, if you extend it out, are against non-playoff teams. And I still think this Thunder team, as constructed, especially in the East, would maybe make the playoffs, probably make the playoffs. So I think 11-9.
Barry, the Thunder will have a blank record while Kevin Durant's out. What's the blank?
Well, the blank, I think, is in AC's head. He just said the Thunder might make the playoffs in the East with this roster. They'd get home court advantage in the East with this roster.
I was saying might make the playoffs. I was thinking West, and then I may have said it wrong, but they definitely make it in the East, maybe in the West. West would be tougher.
Nice try.
I feel much better about the direction of our sports staff after that. Okay. All right. I think they'll go about 11-9.
Hey, you agree with me?
AC made good points. The schedule's rough early, but then it slacks off. So.
Now, what about making the playoffs in the East?
Oh, heck, they'd make the East semifinals without Durant.
I don't think so. I don't know, maybe.
What do you mean, maybe?
They're no Minnesota, that's for sure.
They got 2 All-Stars in the East.
Yeah, for sure.
Can somebody mute Anthony's mic if he's not going to? Well, maybe. No, I don't know.
No, I said they'd make the playoffs in the East for sure. I don't know that they make the second round. I think they'd be a 4-5. I think they'd be a good 4-5 matchup with, I don't know, maybe they play the Heat. It'd probably be Heat Thunder at 4-5.
Are they better than the Wizards with this roster? Darnell?
No.
Well, there you go, Barry. They're probably not making the second round then in Darnell's mind.
Yeah. One of the all-time objective witnesses in the history of mankind. RFD and the Wizards.
Okay.
Is our next question about the Heat to Anthony, for crying out loud?
No, but the next question is to Anthony, and it's about something near or someone near and dear to his heart. Anthony, do you still believe in Jeremy Lamb?
But the confidence is kind of waning a little bit. He's really struggled in the second half last year. Then he was bad in summer league. He's been bad this preseason. He showed us that he can be a capable NBA player in the first half of last season. Shot something like, average double digits, shot like 46, 47%. But ever since then, he has not shown us anything that could be too encouraging. I mean, he had a 1-14 shooting game in the preseason. He had a 1-9 game. He's just not shooting well. And on this roster where Robertson's going to play, Anthony Morrow's going to play, Reggie Jackson's going to get a lot of shooting guard minutes, especially late in games when they play 2-point guard lineups. I don't know what his role is if he continues to struggle once Kevin Durant gets back.
Darnell, live from McDonald's, tell us, do you still believe in Jeremy Lamb?
Yes, I do. I think he is going to play better when he's around better players, when Reggie Jackson's on the floor consistently, when Kevin Durant comes back. Even when, he can get benefit from screens from Nick Collison and Kendrick Perkins. So I think all of the injuries right now have really made Jeremy Lamb out of his comfort zone. He's got to do more offensively, take more on for himself, and that's just really not his game. He's a volume shooter if he has to do that. But if you put better players around him, ask him to do less, I think he can be more effective.
Barry, you still expecting good things from Jeremy Lamb, or is there a cause for concern based on what Anthony spotlighted?
Oh, I think he'll be fine. I don't pay any attention to the preseason. I do think when everybody's here, I think the reliability factor is going to be less. I think Thunder's not going to ask as much out of him because of Anthony Morrow. So I don't think, when he, at the Apex last year at the All-Star break, he was averaging 10 points a game. I don't think he'll be doing that this year once Durant's back, and probably not before. But I think he'll be okay as a role player, but I don't expect him to have any kind of breakout season.
Jenny, is he still sort of a luxury too? I mean, when they bring in Morrow, it doesn't seem like things depend as much on Lamb, even with Durant out.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I think bringing in Anthony Morrow was an indication that, this franchise didn't think that Jeremy Lamb was ready to be that guy just yet. Maybe he can be one day, but maybe just the experience factor. I mean, you look at a guy like Anthony Morrow, and he's been on bad teams most of his career, and he got a chance to play. He got a chance to get out there and, develop the shot, develop the consistency. Lamb hasn't been on a bad team. He's been on great teams so far in his career, and the playing time has just been hard to come by, and it's hard to develop that rhythm, that confidence, that, if he'd have been on a bad team, maybe he'd be a lot further along in his individual development at this point, but it just hasn't happened that way. So, I think he has the potential to still be a good player. I'm not giving up on him yet. But, to this point, I guess I thought we'd maybe see him develop a little more consistency, even in the preseason. I'm with Barry. I don't pay that much attention to what happens in the preseason when you're holding out so many guys that, if the games were counting, they would probably play, at least some of these guys. It's just not how it would normally be. So I'm not ready to say that, he's a lost cause or anything like that. But I just thought we'd see maybe a little bit more consistency out of him in the preseason, which we haven't to this point.
Guys, our final question. Is there time and a need for someone on the Thunder to enroll in an anger management course? Anthony, based on what we saw in Tulsa, what do you think?
I'm assuming that somebody you're speaking of is Russell Westbrook. I think it's going to be interesting to see early in the season how he responds to his teammates, how he deals with the struggles we kind of know are coming, when they're down 12 on the road in Portland, and Perry Jones is missing shots, how he kind of deals with that. It's going to be interesting. Maybe the Thunder should bring Jack Nicholson.
Absolutely.
Jack Nicholson on bring him on the road trip and have him live with Russell Westbrook and see how that works out.
Give him a good seat for the Clippers game Thursday night.
That would be some incredible interactions between those two.
Barry, is there a problem here?
Oh, if there is, who cares? Wasting your time trying to change Russell Westbrook. Yeah. I support things like hiring a foul shooting coach for Steven Adams, or maybe get some energy drink and Jeremy Lamb, whatever the case may be that's necessary. Trying to change Russell Westbrook. Let me tell you what happens to people who try to change Russell Westbrook. He changes them. That's what happens. So I wouldn't go worrying about Russell Westbrook.
Better question, how many first-month technical fouls does he get?
He's going to take it out on somebody.
I'm going to say one.
One? Oh,
yeah,
wait.
One in October.
Oh, okay. Okay. How many technicals while Durant's out? We'll go 15 and 20 games. How many do you think he gets?
7.
Great day. That's high, Jackie O.
He's got 3 in the preseason in 3 straight games. I think he's going to rack up a ton early, and then when he gets towards that suspension area, which is 16,
he'll cool down.
He'll have to cool down. But I think he's going to get a lot in his first month.
Darnell, nobody's seen as Russell Westbrook on this group as much as you have. Will this bring out the worst in Russell or the best in Russell?
I think it's going to bring out a little bit of both. I'm not trying to not answer the question, but I do think it's going to bring out a little bit of both. We're going to see times when he just explodes and erupts, and we're going to see times when he is fantastic.
And erupts.
Yeah, in a bad way. And we're going to see times when he's fantastic where you're like, this is why people feel like he can be an alpha dog and lead a team on his own without Kevin Durant. But I think there are going to be more good times than bad, but there are definitely going to be some times when he's frustrated not having Kevin Durant out there, seeing guys struggle to score, seeing his elite talents not be fulfilled or put in a position where he can be successful and help the team win games. So I think we're going to see some eruptions and more technical fouls, but for the most part, I think he's going to be all right.
Jenny, we'll end that question with you. In fact, when you talked about Chris Paul's frustrations in New Orleans, I thought about this first couple of months of this season and Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, no, I have as well, and I think the game in Tulsa when he got the technical and he was sitting on the court. That game was obviously not broadcast, so we were sort of reliving it through the telling of AC and Darnell, who were there in their writing, and just picturing that as we went to me was really.
We got Jenny frozen. Let's take a minute to plug the podcast. Darnell, tell us what you and Anthony talked about, argued about, discussed on the podcast.
Over-unders. Always fun over-unders. Last year, we kind of talked about Steven Adams, over-under 41 meaningful games. Of course, it's well known by now. I took the under, went way low, said 4, and Steven Adams played 81 games, started about 20 of them. So I was way wrong on that. So we talked a little bit about some of what we're talking about now, technical fouls for Russell Westbrook. Who's going to shoot more three-pointers, Anthony Morrow or Russell Westbrook? Just a bunch of fun stuff like that. It's worth a listen. Give it a shot at newsok.com and on iTunes. Okay,
and I'll put in a plug for our special section, the brainchild of our columnist, Barry Trammell. Barry, a very, very good, I don't know if you guys can see that, prime time. It's the Thunder's no longer the precocious team. It's time to turn ferocious. That's Barry's lead column. A lot of good ideas here. You'll see a double truck by Anthony Slater looking at which teams did not quite scale the mountain as they entered their prime. Barry talks about how the composition of this team has changed and points out that they've already accomplished a lot. You can pick that up on Sunday on the newsstands at the sold with the Sunday Oklahoman. And guys, that's all for this edition of Thunder Thursdays, but you can stay with the best coverage team every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman. Remember, Thunder Thursdays are sponsored by Wheeler Chevrolet. Take that drive down I-40, save yourself some time and money.